The month of April is finally here, and we all know what that means. NFL Draft. All the hours spent doing mock drafts, filing scouting reports, and watching players' tape will be unveiled near the end of this month. And to kick off draft month, what better way than to do a video on a couple of dream NFL draft fits? And to be clear, it's not just as simple as, oh hey, they have a good offensive line, so let's place a running back there because surely he would thrive there, or wow, can you imagine Aiden Hutchinson opposite of Myles Garrett in Cleveland? Because that's not going to happen, as the Browns do not have a first-round pick. These are realistic dream NFL draft fits, and we will discuss everything regarding them, why they could happen, why they are a dream NFL draft fit, and without further ado, let's begin. And we are starting today's video with one of my favorite fits in the entire draft, and it is Iowa State running back Breece Hall to the Buffalo Bills. Over the last 2 years at Iowa State, Breece has ran for over 3,000 yards, ran for 41 touchdowns, and from a receiving standpoint, has another 59 catches for nearly 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. He has been extremely productive over those 2 years, and you could certainly argue he would be the final piece to Buffalo's offense. And Buffalo's rushing attack over the past few years hasn't been bad by any means, but it also hasn't been elite to the point you fear the ground game. Or, more specifically, there's no one in the ground game you fear because Buffalo has been productive, and a lot of that can be attributed to quarterback Josh Allen, who has amassed nearly 1,200 yards rushing and 14 touchdowns in 2020 and 2021 combined. My point here is teams don't go to bed Saturday night before the game and say, well shit, we have to face Devin Singletary and Zach Moss tomorrow. That's the least of their worries when it comes to trying to contain that offense, and with Buffalo being in a position as a franchise where they can afford to take what would consider to be a luxury pick, go for Breece Hall. I'm sure the immediate thought is to draft someone at corner, and they can and will get to that later in the draft, but with Breece, this is a player who does a couple of things that you cannot put a price on. One, he's very productive, and in this offense behind Dion Dawkins, behind Cody Ford, behind Mitch Morse, he would be virtually guaranteed to still be productive and rush for 1,000 yards every year if he stays healthy and has the opportunity. And two, this is something Buffalo, I'm sure, pays attention to and behind closed doors has been trying to figure out to a degree, and that's how to limit the amount of times Josh Allen gets hit per game. And Breece helps you out in both of those ways to a degree. Motor Singletary and Zach Moss cannot and have not over the past few years. Breece would be a 1,000-yard back out of the gate, and to be clear, I'm not saying to take the ball completely out of Josh Allen's hands and try and make him be Tom Brady, because I'm not, because running the football is a part of his game, but limit that part of his game where you can, and that's reasonably, of course. And this selection of Breece does both. Productive player, check. Helps you win football games, check. Protects another player you have a $250 million investment in, check. I love Breece Hall as a prospect, and I do think he would be the final touch for Buffalo, as this offense would have Josh, Breece, Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, and Dawson Knox, and that's a hell of a tough team to try and stop. And from an AFC contender, we go to an NFC contender to discuss wide receiver Jamison Williams from Alabama to the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay has picks 22 and 28 in the first round this year, and there's a strong possibility they take a receiver with both picks or trade up from 22 to get whoever their guy is. And in today's video, we discuss the pairing of Jamison Williams with future Hall of Fame quarterback Aaron Rodgers. Normally, I would say a rookie receiver going to a place like Green Bay to expect to be the number one receiver in an NFL offense effectively from day one would be outlandish and would not be recommended, and it wouldn't in a normal situation. But if the past 15 years have been any inclination as to how receivers play with Aaron as their quarterback, I would not worry at all with Jamison here. Sure, Williams may miss a few games at the start of the 2022 season, and like last year when the Packers lost to the Saints 38-3, there probably will be some trying moments due to growing pains of the receiving core, because it's not going to be as good as it was last year. But when Jamison comes back fully healthy and the Packers are more than likely playing into the second, third, or fourth week of January, it's going to be worth the wait. There's no doubt the impact of Davante Adams being traded will be felt throughout the entire organization and will be seen on the field as well for that matter, but like we've seen every step of the way through Aaron's career, when one receiver leaves, another takes his place. Donald Driver, Greg Jennings, Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, Devontae Adams, and now Jamison Williams. Rodgers makes his receivers better around him, and as for all of those guys that left, especially the guy who put the team on his back in Greg Jennings, how many performed better for the team they went to than when they played with Aaron? The answer is none, and while Derek Carr is a good quarterback, I don't expect Devontae to put up the numbers he did the past 2 years with Aaron. Green Bay may have to trade up to acquire Williams, as previously said, but when you're pushing for a Super Bowl right now like Green Bay is, you do it without question. They clearly need help at the position and will certainly address this multiple times throughout the 2022 NFL Draft, and why not start with Jamison Williams? And believe it or not, this video is not going to be just offensive players to teams quarterbacked by Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, Mahomes, Brady, whoever. So we're going to go to the defensive side of the football, and this next one initially is going to sound crazy, but hear me out, and it's Jordan Davis to the Atlanta Falcons. The main reason I love this is because there's simply not a lot of football players like Jordan on the planet. He's in a lot of ways in a league of his own, and while the Falcons need a lot of help throughout their entire roster right now, why not just get good football players? I'm a firm believer that having Davis on the roster in some ways would cover up other positions on the defense not being as good because of how unique he is and how much focus he requires from an opposing offense. And one example I will use, and this isn't to say he's the next Aaron Donald, but more to show how a defensive tackle helps everyone else out. Leonard Floyd was the 9th overall pick back in 2016 for the Chicago Bears. He was underwhelming as a top 10 pick for Chicago, and what did he do when he went to LA? Well, in his first 2 seasons with the Rams, he has a total of 20 sacks, and in 4 seasons with Chicago had just 18.5. Now, obviously, sacks aren't everything, and it's not because Leonard is all of a sudden successful because of Aaron Donald. It's a lot deeper than that. And not to say any former top 10 pick that didn't work out to the way that their franchise would have liked would become a 15-sack player playing next to Aaron Donald, because there's more to it and correlation does not always equal causation, but what I'm saying is there's no coincidence for this. And if you have a guy who you can't block with one offensive lineman smack in the middle of the defense on every play, and effectively put a 340-pound boulder in the middle of the field that, by the way, ran a sub 4.8 40-yard dash, this is the type of player Atlanta can use as the anchor of their defense. I think this is going to be a pick a couple of years from now where people are like, why did we overthink this and why wasn't he taken earlier when he is a great football player? Positional value obviously has a lot to do with it, but for the Falcons, if you draft Kayvon Thibodeau at 8, if he's there, and we'll say for this hypothetical he is, or Jordan Davis, are you going to go from a 3-win team in 2022 to a 13-win team? Absolutely not. Or maybe if you're a Falcons fan, maybe a 6-win team. My point is, you're not going to go to the NFC Championship game this year. The roster is not good. They have Marcus Mariota as their quarterback and Cordero Patterson as their number 1 running back. You know you're not going to win a lot of football games this year, so draft a player who will cause problems for opposing offenses for years. To address the receiver position, which they surely need, receivers are not as hard to come by now as they were once upon a time. You can get a good receiver nearly anywhere in the draft, but you cannot get Jordan Davis anywhere in the draft. Take him and move on. And next we go to New England to discuss corner Andrew Booth and how he would fit in Bill Belichick's defense. We've done a few mock drafts on this channel, and I have mocked Andrew to the Pats a couple of times, and it makes a lot of sense. He is a good, big, physical corner, and in Bill Belichick's system, he runs a lot of cover 1 and really puts his corners out on an island, and that can lead to a lot of interception numbers for some players in his defense, and see J.C. Jackson over the past few years, who is now a Charger. And with the combination of J.C. leaving and having both the Bills and Dolphins in the division, teams that have great weapons for their quarterbacks to throw the ball to, you need good corners in this defense, and Booth would fit the bill. I also wouldn't mind Kyer Elam from Florida for what it's worth, but Booth is in today's video. And Sauce Gardner from Cincinnati would be the ultimate dream fit, but these are supposed to be realistic, and that will not happen unless we see Bill shoot for a big trade and go from their spot in the early 20s all the way into the top 7 or 8 picks and maybe even earlier, and that would be extremely uncharacteristic from him. And while Booth, like every rookie corner, would go through their fair share of struggles, I do think this would be a good long-term selection for the Pats. Whether or not Tua is the long-term guy in Miami will be found out in 2022, but we do know there's a quarterback in the division that will be there in what will probably be long after Bill Belichick retires, and that is Josh Allen. And stopping Josh Allen isn't impossible, as we saw Jacksonville do it last year for a game, and you could argue New England did as well, even though it was the severely weather-impacted game on that cold December Monday night. They held them to 10 points, and more importantly in Bill Belichick's eyes, got the win. But in the playoff game, the one that mattered most, New England gave up over 45 points and were torched all night long, and Josh threw for 308 yards and 5 touchdowns, and they didn't just lose, they were embarrassed. Teams routinely draft players to try and counter what division opponents are good at, and this will not be an exception. Corner Andrew Booth to the New England Patriots. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, now is the time I ask you to please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because it would truly mean the world. We are closing in on 40,000 subscribers, and I cannot thank you guys enough for the support. And until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.